All right, everyone. So again, today is going to be 2 pages of notes. So on the left-hand side, page 40 is multi-step equations. So it's kind of like the biggest equations that you could run into for linear equations. And then page 41 is literal equations, and that's on the right-hand side. All right, so multi-step equation is we have 1 step, 2 step, and then after that they're just like multiple steps, which is fine. So our learning target is I can solve linear equations with multiple steps. So okay, that's where we're getting into these more complex type of things. Well, there is an absolute order, just like PEMDAS. Where if you follow this, it'll work every single time. So the little saying I use to remember this order is, please don't call me after midnight. Okay, so each letter of the first letter of each word represents the steps. So please, the P means put a line down the equal sign. So that's not different. That's what we've been doing. You just put a line down the equal sign. Then don't, the D stands for distribute if needed. Don't forget to bring the minus sign with it. And so I will show you an example of that. Remember that the sign in front of the number, a plus or a minus, means that that number is positive or negative. So when you distribute through parentheses, you need to take that with you. The C from call stands for combine like terms without crossing the equal sign. Okay. And then the M from me stands for move all variables to one side of the equal sign. That's what we studied last class, is what happens if there's variables on both sides. The A from after stands for add or subtract terms away from the variable term. So that's essentially the first step in a 2-step equation, and you'll see that when we get to it. And then the M from midnight is multiply or divide the coefficient away from the variable. Okay, so that will help us get through these. So we're not going to start full on with all the steps. These ones are things that you technically know how to do, but you haven't done them in the context of an equation yet. So we're going to start with this one. You can see that there's parentheses. We've done something like this before, but I want to do it with, we didn't distribute when we did it last time, so we're going to do that now. So step 1 is to put a line down the equal sign. You don't have to use a ruler. I just do. Okay, so that is the please. Put a line down the equal sign. Then these steps are to be completed in order, but if they are not applicable, then you skip them. So we go to D, which is distribute. There is something to distribute here. You have a -2 out front of these parentheses. So what that means is we need to multiply each term inside. So -2 times 4y. Remember, the way you multiply these is just multiply the numbers and bring the y down. So -2 times 4 is -8y. And then -2 times -5, treat that like a negative, because a negative times negative becomes positive 10. And then that was only on the right-hand side. There's nothing to do on the left, so just bring down the -30. Okay, now, combine like terms without crossing the equal sign. So what that means is look at each half individually and see if you can combine things. So here, -30, can't combine them. On this side, we have a term with y's and a term without y's. Those aren't like terms, so do not combine them. So you can't do the orange or C step. M, move all variables to one side. Well, you can see there's only one set of y's, so that's done. So we are down to a 2-step equation, which is just add or subtract terms away from the variable term. So this is the variable term. This is not the variable term, the 10. So let's move it away, and you add or subtract it away. Since this is plus 10, we are going to subtract 10. What you do to one side, you got to do to both sides. So this is gone. I just have -8y equals, and then that negative 30 minus 10 is negative 40. Okay, so now I'm actually already down to the last step, which is to multiply or divide away the coefficient from the variable. So that means the thing with our variable, in this case it's negative 8 with my y, I'm going to divide because they're being multiplied. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 8. These negative 8s undo each other. They're gone. So I just have y equals, and then on this side, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and then 40 divided by 8 is 5. So positive 5. Now, just like our other ones, we want to make sure that that is the correct answer. So, if I can open my calculator. What we're going to do is put 5 into the original equation for y. So I'm not doing this side because that's just negative 30. There's nothing to do. So we're going to do negative 2. Remember to use this negative button way down at the bottom. Parentheses 4. And then I'm going to put in 5 for y. And I'm going to put that in parentheses because remember the parenthetical promise. We're going to plug it in using parentheses. Minus 5, close parenthesis. And we get negative 30. So that is true. Negative 30 equals negative 30. That is indeed the solution. Okay. Now, this one has us combining some like terms. So step 1, put a line down the equal sign. Okay, then we just follow the steps. So distribute if needed. There's no parentheses, there's nothing to distribute. But then it says combine like terms without crossing the equal sign. So on this side, there's just a 0. So there's nothing to be done on that side. But over here, you will see there are. See, there's a negative 9n and a positive 5n. That means we need to combine those. So I'm going to put them in circles. And notice how I put the plus sign with the 5 because it's right before it. So essentially that's telling me that it is positive 5n. So remember when you combine these, you just add or subtract the numbers in front and then bring the n with it. So negative 9 plus 5 is negative 4n. Okay, and then I'm going to use a different color because we have these terms that don't have variables. Negative 30, because the sign in front of it tells us positive or negative, and positive 14. So again, feel free to use a calculator because it's positive 14 minus 30. That ends up being negative 16. Okay, and as I said before, this equals 0 does not change. Okay. Then the next one is move all variables to one side of the equation. Well, look, we only have n's on the left, so there's nothing to move. Great. So now we're just down to a two-step equation. Add or subtract the terms that don't have your variable away from it, and then move the thing that's in front of your variable. So people think, oh no, there's a 0 here, that ruins everything. No, 0 is just a number. You know how to work with that. So we add or subtract the term that's not the variable. So notice the 16 does not have an n. That's what we're going to move. It's minus 16, we're going to add 16. So that goes away. That makes 0. So all I have is this negative 4n equals, and then actually this is really easy. 0 plus 16, that's 16. Okay, so it seems uncomfortable when there's a 0 there, but actually it's not a big deal. It's just a number. Just go ahead and do your steps. The last one is to multiply or divide by the thing with our n. So we don't want this negative 4. They're being multiplied. We do the opposite, which is divide. By negative 4, it's exactly the same number. Those cancel out. They undo each other. We just have n equals, and then a positive divided by a negative is a negative. And then 16 divided by 4 is 4. Okay, so what I have is -4 for my variable. Again, I want to check it by putting it back in. There's nothing to plug in on this side, so we'll just stick to this side. So we have -9, and then instead of n, we're going to do -4. Remember, you're using the negative button at the bottom. Plus 14, plus 5, and replace that n with parentheses, -4, and then minus 30. And if all is correct, boom, we get 0. So that is the correct solution. Okay. Now, we have 2 more to do. Oops, real quick. That are still not the full example, and then we'll do some full examples. So, again, we are going to want to put lines down the equal sign, so I'm just going to do that real quick for both. Okay. Then, we'll focus on this one. First thing, put a line down the equal sign. Check. Step 2, distribute if necessary. Well, look, there is parentheses with a number out front. So we're going to take the 2 and multiply both terms. So 2 times 5n, you do 2 times 5 is 10, bring the m. And then 2 times -5 is -10, so minus 10. Great. Notice on the left-hand side, there's nothing to do. Just bring it down. Don't change a darn thing. Great. Then combine like terms without crossing the equal sign. So here, if we look, this one has an m, this term. This one doesn't. You can't combine them. This one has an m, this one doesn't. You can't combine them. Notice how I'm only looking at each side independent of the other, because it says do it without crossing the equal sign. So now we go to m, move all variables to one side. So this time we do. We have an m on the left and an m on the right. So from our notes from before, what we're going to do is move the lesser of the two. So 3m is lesser than 10m. So I'm going to recognize that that's positive 3m and do the opposite, which is minus 3m, minus 3m. Okay, so that goes away. Bye-bye. We have 10, negative, don't forget the sign in front of it, equals 10m minus 3m is 7m equals negative, not equals, minus 10. Azor, geez Louise. Okay, then we're down to the last 2 steps. Notice that by the time you get to the last 2 steps, it becomes a 2-step equation. So I need to move the other term away from the variables. So that's 7m, move this guy, plus 10, plus 10. So that goes away, and I just have summed m on the right-hand side equals, and then notice this negative 10 plus 10, that's 0. Do not get confused. When it's 0, it's just a number. Put 0 and continue with your steps, right? The next step is then to multiply or divide that number away. Since it's 7 times m, we're going to divide by 7. Notice I'm not dividing by m, just the 7. I'm trying to move the 7 only, leaving my m all alone. Now, if you forget how to do that, put it in your calculator, but 0 divided by 7 is 0. So m must equal 0. And if we check on our calculator, this time I have to do each side. So the first side is 3 parentheses 0 minus 10. That equals negative 10. Now I'll do this side. 2 parentheses 5, and then instead of m, I'm going to put in 0, so parentheses 0, minus 5, close the parentheses, negative 10. So since the 2 sides are the same, that is the correct answer. Okay? Now again, this one has slightly more steps, but a little different. So first thing, put a line down the equal sign. Already did that. Then distribute if necessary. Well, there's nothing to distribute here, so I'm not allowed to do that. Then combine terms without crossing the equal sign. So again, you ignore one side and just look at the other. So notice I have two things that don't have a variable, which is p. So this is a positive 5, and I need to combine it with a negative 2. So positive 5 minus 2 is positive 3. And then leave the minus p alone because there's no other p's over here. I can't do anything else with it. Then I go to this side, same thing. I have two terms without p's and one with a p. So again, this 3 is positive, so I do positive 3 plus 5 more. And that gives me positive 8. And then this plus 4p, you just have to bring it down. There's nothing you can do with it. And then those are equal. Okay, so all I did was collect or combine the like terms on the same side to make it more simple. Okay, now it's more simple. Then, my first M, move all variables to one side. Again, you want to move the lesser of the two. So when we first glance at this minus p, it doesn't look like anything, but remember there's technically a 1 there. So that's negative 1p and positive 4p, which is lesser, negative 1. Okay, so we'll do the opposite and add 1p. Add 1p. Notice how, again, I'm lining it up with the other p term, not with the 8. Okay, put them together because they're like terms. So that goes away. Those make 0, and I just have 3 equals. And then bring down the 8 because that doesn't change, but here 4p plus 1 more is positive 5p. Okay, so now we're down to 2 steps. Add or subtract away, and then multiply or divide away. So this is the term that doesn't have the p. Remember, it's positive. Identify its sign first, and then do the opposite. So positive 8, I'm going to minus 8. Minus 8. Okay, and you're seeing the step on both sides. 3 minus 8 is negative 5 equals, that goes away, right? 8 minus 8 is 0. So just 5p. And then the last step, since it's 5 times p, we're going to divide by 5. Leaving p alone on the right, and then negative 5 divided by 5 is negative 1. Okay? So now we need to, again, one more time, give it a check. So we'll do this side. Now this is really important that the minus signs are different from a negative sign or you'll get the wrong answer. So we have 5 minus, I'm going to use this button, and then instead of p, I'm going to put in parentheses negative 1 using the negative button down at the bottom. Close it, and then minus 2. And that gives me 4. Now I'll do this side. 3 plus 4, and then instead of p, I'm going to put in negative 1. And then add 5. And I also get 4, meaning this is the correct solution. Okay, so now we have 3 that are the full steps. You have to do every single step here to finish. You are going to do the third one on your own. You're going to attempt it, and remember to check it because that'll help you know if you're right or wrong. So I'm going to do these 2. So remember, it's all the steps. So we put a line down the equal sign, check. Don't, please don't, is distribute if necessary. So in this case, it is. Now, I mentioned if there's a minus sign, you need to take it with you. So notice here that this is minus 5. I'm going to treat it like a negative 5. So if nothing happens to the 10, bring that guy down. Okay? So I need to do negative 5 times 3k. So you just do the numbers times each other. Negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. Bring the k. Then I do negative 5 times negative 4, and that becomes positive 20 equals. Okay? Then on this side, there's nothing to distribute. Leave it the same. 150 minus 5. Okay. Okay, so now we have call, or C, which is combine like terms without crossing the equal sign. So if you look here on the left-hand side, I have a positive 10, okay, and a positive 20. Let's go ahead and combine those. 10 plus 20 is 30, or positive 30, and then just bring minus 15k down here. And then this side, notice this has 150 and this one has a k. They're not like terms, just leave it alone again. Oops, 5, negative 5k, minus 5k. Okay, so we've done please, don't, call, and then me. Me is move all variables to one side. So if you see here, we have negative 15 on this side, k's, and negative 5 on this side. So we want to move the lesser of the two. The negative 15 is lesser than negative 5. So we want to do the opposite and add 15k. Notice I'm lining it up with the k's and not the other numbers. This, boom, goes away. That's the whole point. I'm left with just 30 equals, and then the 150 stays the same, but then again, use a calculator if necessary. Negative 5 plus 15 is positive 10, and then k, because they're k's. Okay, now I only have 2 left after midnight, so this is a 2-step equation. So the first thing I want to do for that is to move the term that's not the k. So over here, leave the k stuff, move this guy. So remember, identify its sign, positive 150, and do the opposite, which is minus 150. Minus 150. So 30 minus 150 is negative 120 equals, those go away, and you just have positive 10k. You don't have to write the plus sign. You can if you want. And then the last step is to multiply or divide away. So this is 10 times k. We will do the opposite and divide by 10. Those 10s divide to be 1. We have k equals, and then negative 120 divided by 10 is negative 12. Okay, and then I would just take negative 12 and replace k on both sides. So the first side is 10 minus 5 parentheses 3, and then instead of k I'm going to put in parentheses negative 12, and then finish with minus 4, close the parentheses, enter. So 210. All right, now we have to see what happens on this side. We have 150 minus sign 5, and then instead of k, I'm going to do parentheses negative 12. Boom, 210. So that is the correct solution. Okay, so one more time, and remember, you'll do this last one on your own. And actually, I might just zoom in a little bit. There we go. So, put a line down the equal sign as your first step. I've already done that. Then distribute if necessary, and it is in 2 places this time. I'm going to start with this one. It's a positive 5, and I'll do positive 5 times c. So this is really easy when there's no number with it because it just becomes 5c. And then 5 times negative 12 is negative 60, and then minus 14. Okay, and then equals, and then this on the other side, take the 3 and distribute it. So 3 times 5c, we do 3 times 5 is 15, bring the c with it, and then 3 times positive 2 is positive 6. Okay, so that's please don't. Now call is combine like terms without crossing the equal sign. So if we look on the left-hand side, you'll see, oh look, we have a negative 60 and a negative 14. We can combine those to be negative 74. Okay, so here there's nothing to combine with the c, so just bring that 5c down. And then on this side, notice there's only one c term, so bring that down. There's only one constant, bring that down. Okay. Now move variables to one side. Again, move the lesser of the two. So I have 5c over here and 15c. Now this time they're both positive, So this is a positive 5, so this one's smaller. So move the lesser. So I'm going to subtract 5c. So that goes away. And I just have negative 74 equals 15c minus 5c is 10c. And then just bring down the 6. And now I'm just down to the last two steps, or a two-step equation. So this 6 is with the variable term, but we don't want it there, so do the opposite. Minus 6, minus 6. Negative 74 minus 6 is negative 80 equals, here those make 0, so you just have 10c. And then last step, again, we just divide by 10 because those are being multiplied. Those divide out, you just get c equals, and then negative 8. Okay, so last thing, I'm going to check my answers real quick. So I'm going to put a negative 8 for c. So on this side, we get 5 parentheses, and then oopsies, parentheses, negative 8. I put it in parentheses because I'm replacing the variable. Minus 12, and then close the parentheses, and then minus 14. Boom. Negative 114. Over here, we have 3, parentheses 5, and then replace c with negative 8. And then plus 2, and then close the parentheses, negative 114. And there you go. That is our solution. Okay, so you will do the next one on your own and then move on to literal equations. Okay guys, at the beginning I said that we were going to do a page on literal equations, and I had planned on it, but I have just decided we're not doing it today. So you actually only have the one page of notes, and that is it. Alright guys, see you later.